There you are, as I've imagined for so long. Today is our day. I do hope you will not disappoint me.
I have the rest of the materials. I can't
fine.
believe I left them at the hotel.
That's fine, Charles. Set them out, will you? Everyone should be arriving soon.
I'm sorry. I suppose I'm a bit nervous. Are you nervous, John?
Charles, I've dedicated my life to getting in front of this commission. I lobbied 2 cities and the U.S. Congress to get here. My whole life and reputation as an engineer rests with East Bridge and this commission.
Yes, I'm nervous too.
Oh. Is it not wondrous to be in a position to build something beautiful for the betterment of man? Asia has the Great Wall, Europe the Colosseum, Africa the pyramids, and now the New World may have our bridge. I only hope everything goes well today.
How can the commission possibly award the designer steel contract to anyone but Roebling Steel? The only other proposal of any merit was the one submitted by Nathaniel Dickey.
Yes, that's what worries me. Don't forget, Nathaniel's father, Howdis Dickey, owns a steel mill of his own. He has been underbidding my contracts for years in this area. I don't understand how he is able to low bid me so often by such a margin and still turn a profit.
And Dickey's relationship with the Tweed establishment is a poorly kept secret.
Yes, the Dickeys have the political clout to get anything approved. I don't trust that man to do anything fairly. If that is who this commission is considering to build my bridge, I call that unacceptable.
John, the commission must entertain multiple bids for business reasons. Don't worry.
Yes, of course, you're right, Charles. I thought you were the nervous one.
I'm sure they're saving the best for last, and that's us. I think they're on their way in.
Ah, Mr. Roebling.
Mr. Dickey.
My son and I are looking forward to hearing your proposals today. We always like to get the input from other parties.
Input?
Well, yes, you know, Mr. Roebling, this bridge does not belong solely to you. You may have been the one to first propose the idea, but it is now in the hands of the bureaucracy. It is a public works project. You might do well to remember that.
Mr. Dickey, I would like to tell you exactly
Mr. Roebling trusts the commission will remember all of his contributions and make their decisions accordingly.
All right, we're already running late, so let's bring this meeting to order. Gentlemen, this meeting of the Engineering Board of the East River Bridge Company is convening this week to hear design presentations and cost estimates for the proposed East River Bridge. At this time, I invite Mr. John Roebling to the front, so he may delight us with his interpretation of this little problem of laying a bridge across the East River. Mr. Roebling.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. I will forgive you for referring to the East River Bridge project as a little problem, as you are the one man among us never to construct a bridge. We are assembled here to discuss construction of a pass over the East River, a river it is well beyond 1,500 feet wide. A river bisecting 2 of North America's greatest cities, Brooklyn and New York. A river that now supports nearly 90 boat crossings every hour of the day and night. A river that God created and that man is now attempting to traverse. Only the proper design will get this accomplished. Careful planning of the process will get it accomplished safely. And it is steel, gentlemen, that will ensure that this miraculous bridge will still be standing 100 years from now. The proper design sits before you with the mark of Roebling Steel Company affixed to it. My team and I labored for months developing this plan, putting it on paper. The careful process must begin with the sinking of caissons into the East River.
You presume caissons to be without risk?
Surely not without risk, Mr. Dickey, but caissons are a necessary means to establish a base large enough and solid enough to support the towers.
What precisely are these caissons, John?
If I may, a caisson is a large vessel, not unlike this drinking glass, only constructed of wood and made airtight, and then sunk, inverted into the river. In order to achieve the proper depth, 1-ton concrete blocks are placed on top with perfect precision to help sink the structure, while a team of roughly 100 men dig from the inside. The digging and the weight of the blocks above lower the caisson until it hits bedrock.
100 men digging from the inside. Will not water rush in, drowning the lot of them?
The air inside the caisson is compressed, preventing water from entering the space.
How large are these structures?
For this project, the caissons need to be approximately 160 by 100 feet.
Quite a bit larger than a water glass, I would say.
Once they reach stable ground underwater, the caissons are filled with concrete.
Only caissons can give us the tremendous strength required to carry the weight of this bridge.
And what of the dangers? I am not aware of the catastrophes that occurred in St. Louis.
16 deaths.
I am aware of the controversy surrounding the use of caissons and the dangers of working in a compressed air environment. We're taking these concerns very seriously. My son, Washington, will serve as a consulting engineer. He is at this moment in Europe studying the safe implementation of caissons where they've long been in use. The dangers of decompression sickness are real, but we have made it a priority to protect our workmen and investor dollars by providing the safest working conditions possible. My goal for the East River Bridge is not to lose a single life.
Decompression sickness?
It is also known, Chairman, as Caisson's disease, a mysterious illness often suffered when working in a compressed air environment. Effects include headaches, muscle spasms, joint pain.
Death. I once heard that they
Let me assure you, gentlemen, despite their less than perfect record, caissons are the only means by which we can be certain of a stable base for a bridge of this size.
You are speaking your opinion, sir, not fact. My son's design
Your
has
son's design is flawed, Mr. Dickey. With the first stiff wind, New York will own the most expensive reef in history.
Gentlemen, please, we are all men of education here, and the board will decide which design is most practical, durable, and fiscally responsible. What of the towers and cabling, John?
Herein lies the genius of this project. The towers will be 270 feet above sea level, dwarfing everything in the New York skyline. They will have beautiful Gothic architecture, and joined to them 4 main cables, which stretch from an onshore anchorage to the top of the tower and down to the bridge deck. Now, these are not just traditional cables like the Dickies have proposed, but cables made from wound steel. So, that is thousands of thinner strands of cable like this one wound together to form a broader, stronger cable, a new type of cable, capable of bearing the load of this bridge for decades, perhaps centuries to come.
The winding of steel strands is an unproven technique. It has been outlawed in England.
Our tests have shown wound steel to be many times stronger than traditional cabling.
This bridge is too important to risk on untried and perilous methods. My design uses sound, trusted technique.
The bridge we're doing here is beyond the scope of any bridging contact ever attempted, beyond the attempts of any of you, and of my own. With such a Herculean task ahead of you, Mr. Dickey, would you not choose the best, most modern materials and techniques at your disposal? Once completed, this will be the longest, tallest bridge in the world. My design will ensure that it is also the strongest and the most beautiful. Look at it. It is strong. It is beautiful. And it can be built not 200 yards from where you now sit.
Thank you, Mr. Roebling. Your presentation will be given equal consideration with those seen earlier in the week. Gentlemen, you have now heard the final engineering proposal for the East River Bridge. I ask that you consider each of them seriously and thoroughly so we may make an educated recommendation to the rest of the board. This bridge is going to be here a very long time, God willing. We must make a careful and informed decision. With that, the business of the East River Bridge Commission is concluded on this date of October 1st, 1869, et cetera, et cetera. Now, who will join me in a drink downtown?
Well, Roebling, it seems you have succeeded in alarming a room full of engineers today. I only hope you haven't ruined the prospects for everyone.
Be careful how you speak of ruin, Mr. Dickey.
I would like nothing more than to trade barbs with you all afternoon, but I have many pressing business affairs to attend to. Nathaniel?
Mr. Roebling, I must say, you and Mr. Martin put on quite the impressive demonstration today. The new techniques you mentioned.
Nathaniel?
Mr. Roebling,
Good day, Nathaniel.
Mr. Martin.
I think that went as well as could be expected.
I wonder if that is enough.
And I'm afraid it's out of our hands now. Come, let's get some lunch.
John, you are not having doubts about this project, are you?
No doubts about the project. Only doubts about the short-sightedness and the weakness of men. Tell me, Horatio, is the bridge company made up entirely of such men?
I wish more of our members possessed your passion and vitality, John. But sadly, the company is made of mere mortals. Valid concerns were voiced today by the engineers, but you answered them. The investors are whom I must answer to, and it is they you need be more concerned about.
My proposal requires a larger budget than the Dickey design. The investors are not going to look favorably on that.
Well, men of wealth are always looking for a solid investment. What is more solid than Roebling steel? You will have the decision in a few days.
It seems it is I who may need to perform up to your expectations.
So I said to him, "Good sir, if you can't keep a proper eye on your mug of beer, well, what did you expect would happen with your wife?"
Well, this is it, E.F. This is the apartment I've rented.
Oh, I see. Very nice indeed. So you'll be sleeping among your drawings then?
No, there are proper living quarters through that door. But you're right. I'm certain if I'm to build this bridge, I will be spending plenty of time at this desk over the next many years. My first assistant, Charles Martin, will also be working here from time to time. I've arranged for him to meet us shortly.
Splendid. I normally enjoy meeting new people. Oh, and you have a beautiful view of the building site.
Yes,
Well, you
yes.
can see clear into Manhattan
Ah.
even. Oh, 10 a.m. Now, John, you wouldn't happen to have a bottle in that grand desk of yours, would you?
I may indeed.
Charles Martin. That wouldn't be C.C. Martin, would it?
Would?
Yes, I have heard that name.
A fine engineer, and honest as the day is long. He attended Rensselaer with Washington.
And how is that fine boy of yours? Why, I haven't seen him since before the war.
Washington? Still in Europe. France, I should think. He's expected back in Trenton on the 20th. He and Emily will be joining us here in New York if we are to be awarded this contract.
Well, you just tell him that E.F. Farrington will be your master mechanic. That alone should be enough to convince them.
Come in. Charles, how
John.
many times must I tell you? This is an office, place of work. No need to be knocking all the time. Is that the latest river survey?
Yes, it is, but
Give it here, man.
John, have you seen the paper?
Look at this. It seems the New York Tower will need to be 40 feet deeper than the Brooklyn.
The Eagle, have you seen today's Eagle?
Oh, we've been touring the site. My apologies. E.F. Farrington, pleased to have you meet Charles Martin.
Mr. Martin.
A pleasure.
E.F. was my master mechanic in Cincinnati.
John.
Yes, a master structure, that one.
John, the East River Bridge work is to proceed forthwith.
How's that?
The executive board of the East River Bridge Company has approved plans for the construction of a bridge over the East River onto Long Island. A budget of $7,065,000 has been tentatively approved for the project. A special meeting has been called for noon today where the board is expected to award both the design and steel contract to Roebling Steel Company of Trenton, New Jersey.
I knew it, John! I knew it! Count on the newspapers to tell you your fortune.
It is here, John. Your years of hard work have paid off.
I have associates like the both of you to thank. I'm looking forward to having you as my first assistant, Charles. And there's no more experienced bridge master in the country. Yep. Gentlemen, to the East River Bridge.
May she stand ready and fast for centuries to come.
I remember the very first bridge I built. It was made of wood and iron. That was nearly 40 years ago.
That's back when the average man did things it would take a Superman to accomplish today.
Charles, we must first start assembling an engineering team.
I have the list of perspectives on my desk. I'll contact them immediately.
And EF, I ask you to head the hiring of labor. We must first assemble teams to build the caissons.
I shall send word out to the shipyard straight away.
I must write Washington immediately. Quickly, men, go. And be back in plenty of time for the meeting. You will be beautiful.
Yes, come in.
C.C. Martin. It seems they will employ anyone to build bridges these days.
Washington, Emily, how wonderful to see you both.
Hello, Charles. How is Mary?
Oh, just fine. She'll be quite excited to see you. I will arrange dinner in town for the four of us this evening, unless you need time to recuperate from your travels.
Dinner would be nice, wouldn't it, Washington?
Of course, as long as my father's first assistant engineer is picking up the tab.
Washington, how did you find Europe?
Oh, Europe is always splendid and always yields much learning. I will share my discoveries with you later tonight. Now, where's my father?
Hard at work, no doubt.
You've just missed him. He and Mr. Farrington have taken several workers out on a survey of the river in search of a location for the Brooklyn Tower. They should be gone most of the morning. Perhaps we should use this time to update you on the project until they return.
Yes, a splendid idea. Emily, why don't you go on to the hotel? This would just be a bore for you.
My husband forgets that I, too, attended university. I have told him countless times I find this particular project fascinating. If it's all the same to you, my sweet, I think I shall stay here a while.
Well, far be it from me to deny the woman I love.
Take it easy now. Take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy. Try not to put any pressure on it. Easy. To the couch. Come on, to the couch.
My God!
Bring it to the sofa.
Father, what has happened?
Doctor, what is it?
Is this the son?
Yes, this is Washington. This is Dr. Smith. He's been hired as physician for the course of the project.
Never mind all that. What has happened to my father?
Seems there was an accident of some kind down at the dock.
An accident?
Yes, we had just docked, and John was the first off the boat.
Yes?
Yeah, well, a ferry bumped us. Damn thing bumped us, and John got his foot caught between our boat and the dock.
Gracious!
Oh, I'm afraid this doesn't look good at all.
What is it you are saying, Doctor?
Mr. Roebling, your father's foot is badly injured. It looks as though I'm going to have to remove 2 of his toes.
Amputate?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Well, I suppose we must do as the doctor ordered. Father, Dr. Smith has advised you will need to have those toes removed.
Well, get on with it then.
How do we proceed, Doctor?
Well, I have the instruments with me, but first you must administer some
Don't
morphine.
get that away from me.
John, you must!
For your own
I
good!
will decide what is in my own best interest. I've never taken any drug in my life and will not begin today. Now get that ghastly needle away from me.
All right. Let us proceed without the morphine.
Washington, your father needs this injection.
Nonsense.
Please, Em.
The procedure will be quite painful. Mr. Roebling should have the morphine.
I know my father, Doctor. If he refuses the medication, then we must proceed without it. Now, please, prepare your instruments.
As you wish.
Mary. Oh, Em, how are you? And how's Mr. Roebling faring? Charles tells me there's been little improvement. Has there been any change?
No change.
He is still refusing medication. I don't understand it.
Despite my urgings, he still refuses both painkillers and antiseptics. All he will allow us to do is flush his foot with water several times a day. He's in terrible pain, but he refuses to stay in bed. And Mary, the wound seems to be getting worse.
Well, what has the doctor said?
Dr. Smith is in with John now.
Oh, well, then let me get out of your way. I just stopped by to wish you well and to hand off this basket.
Thank you.
I tell you, I will not be chained to that bed any longer. There's too much work to be done. Mrs. Martin.
Mr. Roebling?
Charles and Mary have sent over this lovely fruit basket.
Mrs. Martin, please tell your husband, as my first assistant, he should be measuring for tower depth, not preparing gifts for the infirm.
Father, really?
I was just leaving, Mr. Roebling. I'll be praying for you, Emily.
Washington, hand me that scope over there, will you? I wish to observe the survey and caisson teams.
We're in a dire situation. Your father's refusal of medication has caused his foot to become badly infected. This hydrotherapy is not the answer. He's going to need to be moved to a proper hospital where we will sedate him if necessary to administer the proper treatment, if it isn't already too late.
Then we must convince him to go to the hospital at once.
My father will never agree to be admitted to a hospital, Doctor.
I understand the respect for your father's wishes, but he's already showing the early signs of tetanus. Think of your father and think of this bridge of his. If he's not treated properly and immediately, the consequences could be severe.
Thank you, Doctor. I assure you we will do everything in our power.
Washington, you must understand. If he refuses treatment, I cannot be held responsible for his health.
We understand, Doctor. Thank you.
Well, what has the doctor told my family? That I'm dying? That I've lost my mind, perhaps?
Father, I think we should perhaps consider getting you to a hospital. Your foot is just in the worst...
My foot. Everyone concerned about the 8 toes I have remaining. Not enough concern for the bridge I'm trying to affix to this earth. Look at those idiots. We cannot build there. The angle would make the bridge deck 30 feet longer than estimated.
Father.
I can see I need to be out here every minute watching them. Someone bring my drawings out here. Not going back in that bedroom. You're half a block downstream, you idiot.
Father, listen to me,
You're
please.
surveying the wrong area. Washington, boy, go down there, will you? And tell them they're surveying the wrong area.
Father.
Do you know why I immigrated to North America? It was a blank canvas. Washington, son, help me build this bridge.
All right.
Emily, how about some more water now?
You're a silly old man, Dad. Do you know that? A silly old man.
John led a good life. He was a good man and a dear friend. He will be missed.
When Mother died, he said to us, we must carry on. The only greater heartache would be failure to carry forward.
He was right. Dr. Smith.
Good afternoon.
Doctor.
I'm terribly sorry for this loss. To know they suffered these past few days so needlessly. If we were in a proper hospital, I should have done more to persuade him.
You did everything you could, Doctor. We all did. We must be certain of that.
I feel perfectly awful about it. You must understand there was nothing more medically I could do at this stage.
We understand, Doctor. You have our thanks.
Oh, I need to give you this. The death certificate.
We're expecting the Martins at any moment. Won't you stay and have a drink with us?
Oh, no, thank you. I think I'll be going.
Very well.
You'll be in my prayers. Good day.
That was good of the doctor to come by.
Oh, I'll never forget the look on John's face when he first got word that his bridge design was approved.
I'd never seen him more excited about a project. We began designs for this bridge right after the war, when I returned from the army. This entire bridge is his brainchild,
No one else even dreamed it.
and no one else can build it.
But without that hard frost last winter, it never would have been approved by the city, by either city.
Is that so?
Ice in the river prevented ferries from passing for weeks. I never told you.
No. But then when do you tell me about any of your projects? Mary, so good of you to come.
Oh, how many dear friends does one have? We will mourn together. Oh, I am so very sorry for your loss. Charles was so fond of your father.
Thank you, Mrs. Martin.
I don't know if you've met Mr. Farrington. This is Mary Martin.
Charles Martin's lovely wife. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Martin.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Farrington.
Where is Charles? Isn't he coming?
Oh, he stopped down the block to grab a bottle. He'll be along shortly.
Washington, I have something to show you. Pick a card.
Oh, I'm not much in the mood for games, EF.
Oh, nonsense. It'll make you feel better. Pick a card. Now look at it. Remember it. Have you got it? Put it back in the deck. I will now find your card. Is that it? The seven of clubs?
Why, yes! Yes, that's it. Why, that's remarkable, isn't it, Emily?
Oh, that's a trick.
Oh, you think so? Well, perhaps I have magical powers.
Mr. Farrington, we've known you entirely too long. You've an entire deck of the seven of clubs, haven't you?
Well, perhaps I'm a leprechaun.
Emily's right, isn't she? You've got an entire deck made up only of the seven of clubs. Leprechaun, indeed. Oh, you're a good friend, EF.
Oh, now, please don't tell anyone. The ladies love this trick.
Oh!
Don't laugh. I had to purchase 52 packs of cards just to put together this deck.
52 cards and they're all the same? Well, that's marvelous.
Of course, only you, EF.
This is the jolliest lot of mourners I've ever seen.
Oh, Charles, please come in. EF was just treating us to a moment of levity.
I see. I can't believe he's gone. John was so full of life, so determined, and he wanted to do so much for New York. This is a great loss.
And the East River Bridge is lost with him.
But the funds have been allocated. That means Boss Tweed has found a way to make money. Somebody will be building this bridge, you may be sure of it.
With a budget of this size and your father out of the deal, Aldous Dickey isn't going to let an opportunity like this slip away.
Aldous Dickey? Of Dickey Steel and Wire. He's involved in this?
Sure, he's involved. He's got friends on both sides of the river and half of Brooklyn on his payroll. He got himself on the commission and was damn sore when your father's design beat out the one submitted by his son Nathaniel.
Won't be easy grappling with the Dickies on this.
I don't know if I'm prepared for a political battle. Perhaps we should just let this lie.
Washington.
The genius of this project lived in my father, not in any of us. With him gone, perhaps the job is best left to someone else.
Then Aldous Dickey has won.
This doesn't seem the type of man who should be building your father's bridge.
This is not your decision, Em.
But John never trusted him.
Oh, listen to all of you. You would have me march into a room full of investors and political opponents and challenge them. Tell them that because of my father's death, I am seizing control of this project. And now everyone must listen to me.
Oh, Washington, good to see you again. I wish it were under better circumstances.
Mr. Allen.
I hope you don't mind my coming by like this.
Certainly not. Any friend of my father's is welcome today.
Can I get you something, Mr. Allen?
No, I won't be long. Just came to pay my respects. Well, there is another matter.
Please, come in, come in.
Ever since word of your father's illness, the bridge company has expressed concern.
Oh?
You do not waste time, do you?
Mr. Allen, perhaps now is not the time.
No, Emily. It's always the time for investors to look after their money, no matter the circumstances.
I do apologize for the intrusion, Mrs. Roebling. I'm on your side, Washington. I'm here to warn you that the bridge company will want to have an inquiry.
An inquiry as to what?
They cannot scrap the project at this point. There's too much at stake.
Scrap the project.
But they will want to be certain their investment is looked after. The one most responsible for that was your father. The board will want to have a new chief engineer installed as soon as possible. And they need to be certain of the qualifications of this new chief engineer.
Of course, I'll be happy to make any suggestions or assist in reviewing any new candidates for the position.
Washington, you headed your family's steel mill in Trenton, did you not?
You know I did.
Well, this makes you uniquely knowledgeable about the wound steel John proposed, but no one else trusts. You have just returned from Europe gathering research on the caissons we plan to use. You were by your father's side throughout his planning, don't you see?
Yes, Mr. Allen. I'll plan on coming by the commission office perhaps next week.
Washington, you misunderstand. Upon news of John's failing health, the executive board has met, and we have already decided on a sole nominee for this post.
Mr. Allen, are you proposing I be chief engineer?
Other names have been mentioned, Mr. Martin for one, but if you'll forgive me, it is perceived you have little previous experience with bridges.
What about Savannah?
The War of the Rebellion put an end to construction before it could begin.
And Nathaniel Dickey. His design may have lost out to your father's, but Nathaniel has suspension bridge experience, and his father's plenty of influence. But you, Washington, having helped your father develop the original
My
designs...
father was the mastermind. I merely assisted.
Nevertheless, if you wish this project to proceed as John saw it, you will need to make the commission understand that father and son had a shared vision. John was a dear friend of mine for many years. The Dickeys get their way, they will scrap everything that bears resemblance to him. I can have this vote delayed until after the funeral, but no longer. Have the services been planned?
Friday, in Trenton.
Then I will schedule a vote for Monday. I know this isn't an easy time for you, for any of us.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
I should not, I think, ever again be associated with a man such as your father. I will see you in Trenton.
Washington, they want you to be chief engineer. This is terrific news.
It is terrific news.
Washington, what is it? A moment ago, this entire project was in doubt, and now
It is in further doubt. Don't you see? My pursuits in engineering have been largely academic, and I've never led a construction of any kind, and certainly not one of this size.
Well, no one has led a construction of this size. Washington, I am certain your father would want you to complete the East River Bridge.
I know what my father wanted, Mr. Farrington. All he worked on, all he spoke of for years was this bridge. He sacrificed everything for it, his health, his life, even. How can I hope to replace that level of dedication? How can anyone? There is much to consider.
More visitors?
John had so many friends. Oh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Roebling.
Yes.
Oh, pardon my manners. Mr. Haldus Dickey, ma'am, a long-time business associate of your late father-in-law, my son, Nathaniel.
Madam?
I am truly sorry for the loss your family has suffered.
Won't you come in? Washington?
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Dickey, to what do we owe this visit?
Counting already, Haldus.
We are here to offer our sincerest condolences in the spirit of collaboration.
Collaboration.
Yes, I've gotten word that you've been tapped for the new chief engineer post in your father's absence.
Actually, I haven't
A
exactly accepted...
serious task indeed, one every man's not up for. Not only the responsibilities of the construction and the lives of the men, but the time one must commit to a project of this size, all on one's family business, his private life on a marriage.
Mr. Dickey.
That is why I propose a collaboration, a lessening of this burden. Nathaniel is offering you his engineering services. The responsibilities of this grand undertaking may be distributed between your two great minds.
two chief engineers.
Of course, if you don't feel up to working just yet. And who could fault you? Nathaniel would be willing to serve until such time as you are ready. Perhaps you'd care to take a leave of absence to attend to pressing family matters.
Mr. Dickey, I find this intrusion to be in very poor taste.
This man is nothing but a cold-hearted opportunist.
Opportunist? By offering a schooled and experienced engineer such as my son to assist? Someone must be thinking clearly about this bridge, Mr. Farrington.
Washington, tell him. Tell him we don't need his meddling.
My offer is sincere, and Mr. Roebling is best left to decide for himself.
You are not considering this.
It will be a strain, Em. As chief engineer, I'll be working around the clock.
This is your father's bridge. You should be the one to see it through.
And who better to partner with than Dickey, Steel, and Wire? A long overdue coupling of two great families.
John never would have partnered with the likes of you.
John Roebling always knew that this pet project of his would never be completed without my support.
And yet he produced this entire venture without your help. Did you draw up the plans? Lobby Congress with him? Did you do anything to assist him other than try to squeeze a profit from his idea? You can do this, Washington. You must.
Where I come from, when considering important business ventures, a man does not require the counsel of his wife. Your answer, Mr. Roebling.
I will have to
Washington?
I will have to respectfully decline your offer, Mr. Dickey. If the bridge company will have me, I will serve as chief engineer alone. Now, unless there's anything else, I bid you good day.
This your final word.
This is our final word. Good day, Mr. Dickey.
Good day.
I'm so sorry for your loss, truly. Good day.
Washington, I am so proud of you.
Indeed.
Then why do I just feel like I bought a three-legged horse?
Oh, nonsense! This'll be the grandest engineering project in the world. Just as your father envisioned it. A toast to John Roebling and his legacy.
To John
Roebling. This is all very encouraging, but I still do not know anyone in New York. I haven't seen my father's original plans in months, and many of his designs were left incomplete.
The East River Bridge Company has copies of everything, and I have many of your father's original designs.
There. See, we're already pulling together.
John had such high hopes for this bridge, and so did I. I still do, I mean, even with you as chief engineer. Not that I...
We understand, CC.
I'm sorry, I suppose I'm a bit anxious, is all.
That seems to be the order of the day.
Mr. Martin, I believe I have a way of relieving your tension. Pick a card.
Oh, no.
What?
Pick a card. Now look at it. Remember it. Got it?
Yes.
Put it back in the deck. I shall now find your card. Is that it?
It is. It's the seven of clubs. That's astonishing.
No, darling. He's got an entire deck.
Oh, Mr. Farrington, that was most impressive.
You engineers. So easy to fool.
Yes. Well, I'll fetch those designs now.
Oh, I'll go with you. You may need some help.
Thank you, Charles. Oh, Charles,
Yes.
your hat.
Thank you.
Bit of a shaky wheel, that one.
Yes, he can be.
Yes. Curious, especially since you're the one going into the snake pit.
What do you mean?
Well, I've been part of many projects over the years, ma'am. Not a single one of them did the money man not try to blame something on the chief engineer.
I do believe this space will work out just fine, Em. Don't you think? It is a bit smaller than your home in Trenton, but John did pay for the rent, so you may as well put it to good use.
Oh, I'm sure it will be fine, Mary, but it is not domestics that occupy my thoughts of late.
What is it, Em?
I'm concerned for Washington. He seems willing to accept the responsibilities of chief engineer, but there's been a change in him these past few days. I worry he may push himself too far, living up to his father's expectations.
What do you mean?
I don't know exactly. Since they launched the first caisson, he spent much of his time inside that thing. He's been down there all morning.
You mustn't worry, Em.
I try not to, but those massive underwater boxes frighten me. They seem so precarious.
Charles tells me Washington is just fine. He's becoming a remarkable leader, and all the workers respect him, and he seems more determined than ever to build the bridge.
That is what worries me. I know my husband's mind, and once he gets an idea in his head, and he doesn't listen to me, he scarcely lets me help with anything. I sometimes feel as though my opinion doesn't matter at all.
Why do you bother your mind with such thoughts? Didn't we marry intelligent men so that they would do all the thinking? But I am glad Charles is not like that. But don't misunderstand. He is the tireless worker. He just isn't the sort to take chances with his health is all. He's been known to work late, as a duty like his will often require, but he comes home to me every night. Actually, our lives are not all that different than the way they were before we came to New York.
Is that so?
We'll take care of that later. Ladies?
How are you feeling, Washington?
Oh, fine. You needn't worry, dear wife.
Is Charles not with you?
Oh, he remains down in the caisson. He may be along for lunch.
Oh.
Mary was just helping me unpack some of our things. Ah, yes, my husband's assortment of minerals. I must say I never understood your fascination with them. Thankfully, you did not bring the entire collection.
What's curious about it? All an engineer, anyone, has to work with is what God has provided. Look. Iron ore, from which we make steel. Oh, and coal, which powers the plants that make the steel.
Put that filthy thing away.
Filthy? The amazing thing about coal is its potential. Isn't that right, E.F.?
Anything you say, Chief.
Sure, it might not look like much now, but put this same lump of coal under enough pressure for a long enough time, and even it may yield a beautiful prize.
I will have to remember that.
Are you two trying to make me sick?
I think it's sweet.
And look at these books, as if your father did not provide enough structural supports in engineering, the mathematics of engineering, an engineer's encyclopedia, the edifice of structures in ancient Rome.
Oh, you'd like that one. There are many pictures.
Very funny. Actually, it does look rather interesting.
Never mind all this. We have tremendous news. Our digging progress has been remarkable.
Yes, we are currently at a depth of 80 feet and progressing at an additional 3 feet per day.
We expect to hit bedrock by 110 feet. Isn't that marvelous? A mere 30 feet to go.
With progress like that, you should be able to stop digging, pull your men out, and fill the first caisson by the end of next week.
Well, if we can keep it up. You never know what you're going to come into down there. I was working this job once in Kansas City, it was. Yes, we were digging for weeks, and we were just about to lay the stone when we come upon a wagon wreck. Well, we figured it had fallen off the old bridge, but it couldn't have been there long. The horse carcass was still fresh.
Oh, Mr. Farrington.
Well, do you know how many men it takes to move a dead horse?
Mr. Farrington?
And, especially under 10 feet of water. We were there for 2 extra days. And then there was this one time when I was expanding a sewer line.
Oh, we get the picture, E.F.
Mr. Farrington, tell me, what is it like working down there in the caissons?
Well, Mrs. Martin, the compressed air makes it very difficult to breathe. Yes, the deeper we dig, the harder it is to get air. Sound, too, becomes distorted. There's very little in way of ventilation. With the red fire of the gas torches used to light our space and all the working bodies, the heat becomes unbearable. But at the same time, the ice-cold river forms the mud base for which we work on and freezes our feet with every step. It surely is what Dante had in mind for his Inferno.
Yes, well, our great progress is an example of how EF motivates his workers.
I am certain that has much to do with it, but I think the men are genuinely excited to be part of such a tremendous undertaking.
And as they should be. This will be the grandest bridge in the world.
I must admit, I've taken to some excitement myself.
It must be Charles.
Always late. Good morning, Mrs. Roebling.
Mr. Dickey?
I was hoping to catch you here. Your husband seems to be a tireless worker, often unreachable as he spends much of his time in the depths of the caisson. One wonders what effects that may have on a husband's health.
State your business, Dickie.
Oh, Mr. Farrington, I'm here as a friend. And as a friend, I should tell you that there has been a swelling of controversy regarding your tenure as chief engineer, Mr. Roebling.
Oh, is that so?
Yes, I'm afraid it has been trumpeted that you may be in the midst of a conflict of interest.
Yes, and I bet I know who's leading the brass band.
Well, it is believed by some that the chief engineer ought not to be associated with the organization that supplies the materials for the bridge, especially a $1 million steel contract.
Washington has sold his shares in Roebling Steel, and his brother is acting as president.
This was covered at the bridge company's last meeting.
Well, the company was content to allow your father to serve in both capacities, the bridge being his idea, but they will be less willing to exercise the same rights to you. Something always goes wrong in a project of this size.
And if it does?
Oh, well, then the bridge company would have no choice but to either replace the chief engineer or to revoke the steel contract in favor of another supplier. You see, Mr. Roebling, I always find a way to win.
Mr. Dickey, I think it is time for you to go, and you are not invited to darken this doorstep again so soon.
Young woman, I gave you the opportunity to share this bridge with me, and you shut me out. Now you are forcing my hand. You will sacrifice either your chair or your father's precious steel contract. You may be certain of it. Good day.
That man. Who does he think he is, just coming in here and making threats?
He is a low horror of a man, but very powerful. Washington, what are we going to do?
What else can we do? We will continue doing our best work and pray for God's good grace. I will not have the details of my father's bridge dictated to me by an outsider.
Look at you, Washington. As much enthusiasm as your father ever possessed. I wasn't sure I would ever see this.
Washington, EF, come quickly. There's a fire.
A fire where?
Inside the caisson.
Oh my God!
Fine, I'm fine. I can walk on my own.
Doctor's on his way.
How long was he down there?
For the entire ordeal, nearly 10 hours. Couldn't locate the source of the fire. We had to flood the chamber to extinguish it. He would not come above until just before the water entered. He seemed fine for a while and then just collapsed on the dock in pain in front of everyone.
I'm fine!
Mary, would you fetch me the rubbing salts from the washroom, please?
Oh, right away.
Washington, what have you done?
I should have done more to keep him above.
Don't blame yourself, Charles. My husband can be very difficult to persuade. Where is Dr. Smith?
The fire got out of control. We sent the lift back down for workers and then back up. It was madness.
I came as quickly as I could. We have many injuries tonight.
There are others?
Yes, we've had several more cases of decompression sickness this evening, and some good birds to treat as well. Have you any neck pain?
No, the other workers, the men, are they all right?
Well, we've had a few serious injuries.
But no deaths.
No, thankfully no deaths as of yet, but decompression sickness can reveal itself to be deadly. hours, even days after the initial attack. I've used up all my rubbing alcohol. Is there a bottle of brandy about or other strong drink?
I don't think so.
John left a bottle in his desk.
Thank you, Charles.
Please. All right. I'll be open.
Now that's better. Okay. How is your breathing?
Fine.
Are you experiencing any cramping in the abdomen, perhaps?
Some, but I'm feeling much better.
Should watch him closely, of course, but this doesn't seem to be too serious. Now, I have other boys to check on tonight, so I must be going.
Thank you.
Apply the salts and alcohol again in the morning. I'll be by tomorrow to check on him.
We should go in as well, if you're sure you're all right, Washington. Come, Charles, let's get you cleaned up.
Washington, take the day off tomorrow, huh? Good night.
You are as stubborn as your father. Do you know that?
Had to be done. For the welfare of the bridge, the men needed me.
Yes, the men need you. They won't be able to build this bridge without you.
I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. Have you seen this? The remarks in today's paper. Injuries and costs are both mounting as the East River Bridge construction comes to New York. Although the Brooklyn caisson has been sunk and that tower is beginning to be erected, the fire in that structure 6 weeks ago has added $10,000 to the budget and slowed overall progress. Nerves were rattled when Chief Engineer Washington Roebling succumbed to decompression sickness upon emerging from that same caisson. The New York caisson, launched 3 weeks ago, has already encountered problems of its own. After a rapid initial descent, digging progress has now slowed to only inches per day. The New York caisson also seems to be more hazardous to its workers, as incidents of decompression sickness are being reported daily, with one young man reported near death. After this bridge is built, and the final human and financial costs are tallied, I wonder if this will seem like an awful lot of trouble just to get to Brooklyn.
While those accounts are fairly accurate, the mark of our progress is evident. The Brooklyn Tower is well underway. The Brooklyn crews have even managed to make up for delays caused by the fire. The news is not entirely good, however. The increased depth needed for the New York caisson, nearly 30 additional feet, is not only slowing progress, but going to add to the height of the New York Tower and dollars to the budget.
How is the budget?
The fire alone depleted the portion of the original budget allocated for these sort of things. And now with the trouble we're having on the New York side...
Well, what can be done in New York? We are going to be constructing a tower consisting of 13,000 cubic yards of concrete on top of that caisson. Shall we risk having the foundation of that tower shift in 6 months or a decade simply to save a few dollars? Dollars that, if not used on ensuring the safety of the bridge, will surely be used to line Tweed's pockets. We cannot stop sinking that caisson until we hit solid bedrock.
Clearly, nothing can be done from an engineering perspective. The tower base must have a firm footing, but, well, Washington, the finances are only part of the issue. With increased depth comes increased air pressure inside the caissons. There's less oxygen, forcing the men to work harder, tire faster. Dr. Smith believes this is leading to an increase in the rate of decompression sickness among the men. We've lowered the amount of time a worker can be inside the caisson to 6 hours a day, and they're still getting sick.
Then we will lower it again. Make it known that each man is only to spend a maximum of 4 hours per day in the remaining caisson.
I agree, but with digging progress at a minimum, a shorter workday will just slow us down even more.
I will instruct EF to hire a new shift of workers to dig in the riverbed and to mix the new workers with the experienced ones.
That will add to the budget.
Oh, the budget be damned, Charles. I will not have my men dying in there. Oh, EF, please come in. Can I get you a drink?
No, sir, never while I'm working.
Of course, of course. We were just discussing that perhaps it would be prudent to hire a new shift of workers to dig in the caisson. This would allow us to cut the maximum time spent till 4 hours per day. We can't have our men keep getting sick in there.
What do you think, Mr. Farrington?
That's one of the things I came to discuss. I just had to send 2 of our lads to the doctor after their shift. This disease is so hard to see in a person. It is as if the man has been removed and replaced with a hollow shell.
Yes. So you agree with the adjustments then?
I will take care of it.
Was there something else you wished to discuss, Mr. Farrington?
Well, perhaps it will take care of itself.
Oh, come now, EF. I trust you more than anyone else on that work site. If you have problems, I want you to express them. Will you have trouble finding new workers?
We never have any problems finding workers. Everybody's very excited to be part of this project.
Well, then what is it?
Everybody's working hard on this bridge. My boys in the caisson are just having a rough go of it, is all. We are digging at depths never before attempted. The oxygen is getting thinner and the ground more rigid. They're just working harder with no results. Why, just this morning, we reached what we thought was bedrock. It turns out to be just impacted sand. I put a fresh crew on it, but I feel if we have to continue digging through this sand, it'll take the better part of a year.
A year? Even if we continue construction on the Brooklyn Tower, that would bring us to... Where did I put my ledger?
And how many more injuries do we risk if we dig an additional year?
Emily, can you give me my black ledger? I think I left it somewhere in there. Enter.
Good morning.
Oh, Dr. Smith, we were just discussing...
There's news, Doctor?
Seems the first man Mr. Farrington sent to me has died. Complications to the onset of caisson's disease.
My God.
Damn!
What was his name?
John Myers.
The other man should be all right. He is receiving treatment now. I thought you should know.
So the bridge has claimed its first life.
It's second.
Your father, my apologies, Washington.
Is there anything that can be done, Doctor?
You're taking all the necessary precautions, or so we think.
Doctor.
Your husband is right, ma'am. If we only understood more about this condition. Other than limiting the amount of hours spent beneath the surface, I don't know what more can be done. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Thank you, Doctor. Impacted sand, you say?
Yes, it is so hard, our tools are being blunted.
Let us have a look at that impacted sand.
Washington.
Gentlemen, wait for me outside, would you?
You're going down in that caisson again.
Emily, please, I've only been down there a few times since
You
the
shouldn't
accident.
have been down there at all. You heard what Dr. Smith said.
Emily, I have to. The men's lives depend on it. They have families and responsibilities too.
Your father wouldn't listen to the doctor either. I'm coming. What is it, Doctor?
Mrs. Roebling, try to remain calm.
To the couch.
What's happening?
This time it hit him immediately. As soon as he emerged, he just jumped over James. I'll get the salt.
Can you hear me? He's beyond that. I'm afraid his condition is worsening. You have to get him to a hospital immediately. Gentlemen, come with me to fetch a stretcher. Stay with him. We'll be right back.
I'm sorry.
Mary, how good to see you.
I do hope I have not come at a bad time.
Of course not. Please, come in.
I wanted to see how you've been faring with Washington still ill. Is there any news?
When I saw him yesterday, he was still in a great deal of pain. The drugs help, but he's not walking. I'm so worried. Dr. Smith has promised to come by today and update me on his condition. I do hope he brings good news.
Oh, I'm sure he will. How are you, Em?
Me? Oh, I'm just fine. I've been keeping quite busy.
Yes?
Oh, yes. Why, just this morning I sorted all of Washington's neckties, first by length, but I then decided that grouping them by color would be more practical.
Oh, that's nice.
Mary, I'm nearly losing my mind here. Not knowing when Washington will be able to come home and in what state, well, it's nearly too much to bear. I've even just now opened one of Washington's engineering books. It made me feel closer to him somehow.
Oh, Em, it isn't good for you to be here alone worrying, Charles, and I would like you to stay with us just until Washington is up and around again. We have plenty of space. What do you say, Em?
Oh, that's nice of you, both of you. But no, I should be here.
Well, at least let me get you out for a little while to get some fresh air. Shall we take a walk?
Oh, Mary, you're so sweet, but I really must remain here and wait for Dr. Smith. That must be him now.
Oh, I'll tend to these.
Good day, Doctor.
Hello, Mrs. Roebling.
How is he today?
May we sit?
Of course. Where are my manners?
That's okay.
Mrs. Roebling, I've been observing and caring for your husband for several weeks. I'm afraid he has not responded well to recent treatment.
I see.
Washington is off the morphine and the vomiting has stopped, but his lungs have been greatly traumatized. He is often short of breath. He is easily winded, therefore he cannot speak for long periods. He has regained the use of his arms, but he is still not walking.
Is not or will not walk.
There's much we don't know about this disease. Man has created the environment for Caisson's disease to take hold, but we know so little about it. While it would not be beyond precedence, I do not expect that he will walk again. Having said this, it is my feeling that keeping him in the hospital will not further his recovery. Emily, your husband is ready to come home, but I'm afraid he will not be the same. His functions will be limited. Do you understand?
I see.
I'm sorry.
My husband will want to know when he will be able to return to his duties as chief engineer.
I cannot answer that. Your husband has suffered a severe trauma. I think the possibility needs to be considered that he will not be able to return to his duties, not anytime soon. You might want to make other arrangements. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes, Doctor.
Good. Are you ready to have him back?
If he is well enough to return home, then I am prepared to have him.
You're a remarkable woman, Mrs. Roebling. Your husband is very fortunate to have you. I'll arrange tomorrow to have him discharged.
Thank you, Doctor, for telling me yourself.
Of course, I only wish the news were better.
Oh, Em.
What am I to do, Mary? Washington is coming home tomorrow. He may never walk again. And what of the bridge? He will be devastated if he can no longer work on his father's bridge.
You have to be strong, Em. You have to be strong for Washington and give him the support he expects from a wife.
I only wish I could do more.
Well, shall I stay with you?
No, Mary, thank you.
You're certain?
Yes, I'll be all right.
Well, I'll stop by in a day or so if there's anything that you need.
Thank you, Mary. Come in.
Hello, Emmy.
Oh, hello, Mary.
I thought Washington may want to be updated on the bridge's progress today.
Oh, yes, Charles, although he is sleeping now.
Charles!
Yes, Charles and Mary are here, darling.
Send him away.
We should come back another time.
Don't you want to hear about the bridge, dear?
Very well.
Please, Charles.
And while the men were visiting, I'd hoped to persuade you to come shopping with me to get your mind off of things. But you seem to be, well, I'm not certain I know what it is you are doing.
Mary, may I confide in you?
Oh, yes. What is it?
Washington has been home many months, and I've seen no improvement in him.
And the doctor said there was little chance of a quick recovery.
Still, I had thought once he was home and able to focus on the bridge again, we would see some improvement. He's still so weak, Mary. He won't go out. He doesn't want the men to see him in this condition. He's all but lost interest in the bridge entirely.
I know this hasn't been easy for either of you.
That is why I'm trying to help him.
Help.
Yes, I am studying. I have been for some time.
Studying? Whatever are you studying?
Engineering, specifically as it pertains to bridge construction.
I see. Why?
If Washington is unable, then I may take responsibility for the bridge by learning about construction and engineering. I may be able to assist him.
Oh, Emmy, is there no hope for any recovery?
Mary, there is always hope, but... Oh, Mary, read this.
The East River Bridge Company has scheduled an emergency inquiry tomorrow to discuss the failing health and possible removal of their chief engineer, Washington A. Roebling.
Oh, they're coming. Mary, let's put that away. I don't want Washington to see it, not yet. Oh, that was fast. How was he?
Oh, he was
He is exhausted.
But I was able to convince him to take a spin around the work site.
That's wonderful, darling. The men will be glad to see you. Washington wanted to go?
Yes, he wanted to go. He's also in the room and available to answer his own questions.
We won't be long.
No, I cannot do this. Not today. I should get some rest.
Washington.
Oh, yes, do rest. You'll need your strength for the inquiry tomorrow.
What inquiry?
Did I misspeak?
The East River Bridge Company has scheduled an emergency inquiry tomorrow to discuss the failing health and possible removal of their chief engineer, Washington A. Roebling. Mr. Roebling's health became a concern when he suffered a debilitating attack of decompression sickness after emerging from the New York caisson. Since his injury, Mr. Roebling is bound to a wheelchair and he has not been seen for weeks at a time. Associates working closely with the chief engineer say he suffers episodes where he cannot speak nor listen. This leading to neglect of his duties and possibly to the deaths of 2 more men digging in the New York caisson. We did everything possible to protect those men. If Washington Roebling ever recovers from his affliction, it surely will not be before the bridge is completed. Preparing for the worst, the bridge company is entertaining a motion that allows for the removal of the chief engineer and the option of revoking the steel contract currently awarded to Roebling's Son Steel Company, a company Washington Roebling captained for years. I swear I didn't know about this.
I cannot do this any longer.
We can fight this.
No.
Washington, if you like, and only with your permission, I am willing to shift my duties to include those you now find difficult.
Charles, you are the finest first assistant I could hope for. I know you are capable of that and much more. And if I were to willingly step down and nominate you to take my place, the commission would have no choice but to acquiesce, and the issue of a conflict of interest would no longer hold any merit.
Washington.
I wasn't suggesting to
What I am suggesting, Charles, is you should prepare immediately for your new responsibilities. And Emily, you should prepare for us to return home to Trenton. We will leave after Charles and I have had sufficient time to consult.
Do you want this bridge finished by someone else, what your father began and what you have continued?
Of course I do not want this, Emily.
I cannot continue as chief engineer. I haven't all my faculties.
What more do you need than what I can see? Yes, you cannot, you are not walking, but your mind is still working, is it not?
My judgment has cost the lives of 3 men. I have failed my staff, my father, and 2 cities. And I can only imagine what you think of me.
I am proud of all that you have accomplished, and you should be also. Yes, maybe everything hasn't turned out like we had hoped, but you're here with me. And the bridge is still being built. Your father's dream can still be realized.
Look at me, Emma. I'm 34 years old. I can barely speak, and I may very well be an invalid for the rest of my life. What I've done to myself is unforgivable.
Washington.
No, Emily, it is over. Look, I have tried. I cannot serve as my father would. That bridge has beaten my family. It has beaten me.
Washington, I have been looking through your books.
My books?
Yes, studying construction history, engineering techniques, and higher mathematics.
Then you may be chief engineer.
No, but I may be of assistance.
What is it you're saying, Em?
I'm asking you to let me help. For the first time in our lives, let me help you. Let me help you build this bridge.
My God, you're serious. Emily, you've been of great assistance to me already. If I have seemed unappreciative, I'm sorry. And it's not that I don't appreciate your idea. It's just I do not find it a practical one. The idea that the chief engineer's wife would be acting on his behalf.
I don't pretend to be able to replace you, but I can complement you. I've learned about architecture, construction, steel, cable. Let me prove it to you.
No, Emily. My mind is made up. This cannot work. You should forget those books and ready for us to return home.
Charles can take over the responsibility of the inspections.
Yes.
I can deliver and interpret your instructions. You can supervise the entire construction from here.
From up here? Well, I may as well be in Trenton. What would you have me do?
Utilize that spyglass as your father did. Why, you can see everything from here. I can see clearly even to New York.
It could work, Washington.
Yes.
This is horseshit!
We've seen that, EF.
Oh, EF, I'm glad you're here. I want you to announce immediately to the men my intention
What
to...
would your father do, Washington?
My intention to deliver the bulk of my orders through Emily from this point forward. Her words are to be treated as if coming from my lips. Your duties and Mr. Martin's will continue uninterrupted.
Sure, Chief.
Good. Now what are we to do of this article in the paper?
They're meeting tomorrow.
Our invitation must have gotten lost in the mail.
I cannot attend, not in this condition. It would only prove to them I cannot serve.
I will go in your place. Mr. Martin as well. Why, we'll set those bureaucrats straight.
Yes,
You can trust us, Washington.
We'll go to the bridge company and address these baseless charges.
I must remain chief engineer, this above all else. Roebling began this bridge, and Roebling will see it done.
John would want it that way. There's another thing. We've had more cases of the caisson disease. I had to send 4 lads to the doctor today.
Will they be all right?
I think so, but we can't keep up like this.
No, we're at critical depth in that case on Washington. The air pressure's becoming too great.
We can't keep the men down there.
Yes, I know you're right. And you say there's been little progress digging in the caisson.
We've been digging with practically no progress at all. This sand continues to be hard as iron.
Hard as iron.
Washington, I recall having read something. Yes, here. Is it possible that that sand is fossilized?
Well, if it were fossilized, would it be solid enough to support the caisson and the tower?
Charles, EF, I want you to go down and announce to the men that anyone displaying symptoms of caisson's disease
is to see the doctor immediately.
Right.
Washington, what about this
Go
sand?
now. Go, please.
It's good to have you back, Chief.
Washington, what are you thinking?
You may be right. That sand may well be fossilized.
What are we going to do?
Well, if proper testing agrees, we will place the caisson directly on top of the fossilized sand. It hasn't shifted in centuries. It's just as good as bedrock. For if we do not, we risk losing more men each day. Of course, if I am wrong, the entire structure may collapse now or in the future. I need to get Mr. Longwell up here, my chief geologist. As it happens, I'm unable to retrieve my staff because I'm stuck in this cursed wheelchair.
Washington, don't be upset. I will get the geologist, Mr.
Longwell.
Mr. Longwell.
Thank you, Emmy.
Come along, boy. I want us to have a favorable vantage point for what's going to transpire today.
Do you really expect them to award us the steel contract?
Nathaniel, we could not have hoped for a better set of circumstances acting in our favor. Not only has the project been wrought with delays, construction difficulties, and the budget revised twice, but 3 men have died. Perhaps the commission expects delays and inflated costs, but workers die? That really grabs one's attention. Roebling himself was, or perhaps is, near death. I understand. His wife is now giving construction orders. Son, we could not have hoped for a better set of circumstances. I tell you, ever since that time when he went overboard and, well, anyway, son, regardless, it's going our way today. Remember that.
The revelry you take in this misfortune of other men is staggering. Washington Roebling, he was crippled because of the bridge.
Not revelry, son, merely the seizing of an opportunity.
Roebling was crippled because of the bridge.
Nathaniel, if you ever want to succeed in New York City, this is how business is done. You just follow my lead as I point out many of Mr. Roebling's faults and neglects. Hush now, everyone is arriving. Remember, take notes.
Gentlemen, if you all be seated, please. We are here today to discuss the failing health of our chief engineer, Washington Roebling. Mr. Roebling's condition prevents him from attending today. Therefore, I have invited the 2 men working closest with him to speak on his behalf. Most of you will remember Charles Martin, the project's first assistant engineer. And joining him is the bridge's master mechanic, Edwin F. Farrington. Mr. Martin will now address the company, giving us an update on the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Gentlemen, I am aware of the apprehension felt by many of you concerning the health of Washington Roebling. While it is true that he can no longer walk, I am here to assure you that he is of the soundest mind and brightest of spirits.
Is it true he cannot speak?
Please let us allow Mr. Martin to finish.
No, I will answer that. Mr. Roebling has never lost the power of speech, and any rumors that he is not speaking are completely unfounded. While it is true that he can become easily winded, it then requires him to take extra time to converse.
At what length? Can you not give instructions to the workers? Give instructions to you, Mr. Martin?
Mr. Roebling and I speak frequently. We are in constant communication.
And the workers. Who is instructing the workers? You, Mr. Martin?
Mr. Roebling has decided to give instructions to the work crews through his wife, Emily.
And what is Mrs. Roebling's experience in the design and the construction of suspension bridges?
Well, none. That is.
Emily Roebling is an intelligent and capable woman, and the next man that laughs at
Let
her
us keep this
will have
on
to
a
answer to E.F.
professional
Farrington.
level, gentlemen.
This is horseshit, is what it
Mr.
is.
Farrington.
The bridge instructions come directly from Mr. Roebling, and they are delivered
Through the grapevine, apparently.
I assure you, the chief engineer is in total control of the building process.
How can that be if he is not in direct contact with his workers?
Well, that's what he has me for.
Well, you are not chief engineer.
Well, Mr. Farrington is one of the most experienced builders in the country.
Mr. Allen, fellow board members, with all the respects due to Mr. Farrington and to Mr. Martin, neither is our chief engineer. If Mr. Roebling is indeed incapacitated, he must be replaced. And if I may, the steel contract awarded to his own family business is an obvious conflict of interest. If Roebling is not dismissed, we must consider new bids.
Oh, not this again.
That is right. The man selling the steel and the man buying the steel should have different names.
What say you, Mr. Martin, on the charge that this be a conflict of interest?
Sir, I feel I'm at a disadvantage. I am not comfortable speaking on Mr. Roebling's behalf regarding such serious family matters.
Do you feel comfortable speaking about the deaths of 3 young men? Deaths occurring under Mr. Roebling's watch?
Again, matters of such importance are best handled by Mr. Roebling or perhaps Dr. Smith.
Quite right. These are very serious matters indeed. Knowing the gravity of this situation, it is rather curious that Roebling would send representatives here in his stead.
Now, just a minute.
We have no further minutes, Mr. Farrington. With every passing moment, we risk further corruption, an increased chance of worker injury or death, and a greater probability of engineering error. Everyone here agrees Washington Roebling is a capable man. I myself have prayed for his returning strength. But if he is of such ill health as to keep him from appearing here today, I say we must rethink what his capabilities are. I move we put this to a vote right now.
I second that motion.
We have a motion. It has been seconded, and I believe we've had enough discussion on the matter for now. Therefore, I am announcing a vote to be held on this matter.
Mr. Allen, we are not prepared for a vote today.
What did you think this was? Look, Dickie's not the only one. I'm getting pressure from City Hall on this. Charles, you've done all you can here. The board cannot appear incompetent.
Isn't there anything that can be done?
These men, each looking to push their own agendas at the first opportunity. And Haldis Dickey has the money and support to take over this entire project if you let him. I'm going to push for 2 separate votes. Now take your seat.
Come, Chairman, let us not have any further delays.
Because there are essentially 2 issues at hand, the first on the topic of conflict of interest, and the second on whether we should proceed with an official recall, I think it is prudent to hold 2 separate votes. These issues are to be considered separately. The vote today is whether there is sufficient cause to reassign the steel contract due to a conflict of interest between our supplier, Roebling Sons Steel Company, and our chief engineer, Washington Roebling.
Mr. Allen, I should like to...
Mr. Aiken, prepare the ballot box. Voting members are instructed to approach the box and vote yea or nay to reassign the contract.
Why did you cut us off? You failed, Brunet.
You were being impudent, Mr. Farrington. Be grateful I stopped it when I did.
Mr. Allen, you said you were on our side.
I want nothing more than to see John Roebling's son finish this bridge. Never doubt that. You're lucky all Washington will lose is the steel contract.
John Roebling was like a father to me, and Washington a brother. I'm not a Roebling, Mr. Allen, yet I feel I am responsible for their legacy, and I am failing them.
All votes are cast, Mr. Allen.
Then I will read the votes while you record them, Mr. Aiken. I can only vote in the event of a tie. I wish I could do more, but I have people I must answer to as well. On the vote of whether to reassign the steel contract on the East River Bridge, we have 1 nay. 1 yea.
The lame chief engineer's good wife returns. Tell me, what is the state of my bridge, dear wife?
Your bridge is just fine. With the caissons filled and both towers now erected, the men can concentrate on laying the deck and stringing the main cable. Do you have John's plans for the bridge deck?
Yes, I have them right here.
Oh, I see you've made some changes. This looks very nice. 2 carriage lanes and a raised walkway.
You can handle some last-minute alterations. Did you see EF or CC while you were down there?
EF is up on the New York Tower. Charles hasn't come by?
No. It's nearly noon and still no word of yesterday's meeting.
I'm sure all went well, otherwise they would have said something. Besides, today is a big day. They're busy stringing the first cable from New York to Brooklyn. EF and his crews are mooring it now.
Oh, yes, I see them. There's quite a crowd looking on.
Well, the paper said the first cable would be secured today. People have never seen anything like this.
What in the world? What is that crazy fool doing?
What is it?
Emily, come. You must see this. Do you see EF atop the tower?
What is he doing?
He has a harness of some sort. He's securing it to the cable.
A harness, is it?
Oh, see for yourself.
Why, yes! There's a seat. He's getting on and waving to the crowd.
He wouldn't. Oh, here he comes! Flying over New York for all to see.
Wow! I suppose we know who the first man to cross over the East River will be.
If he falls, there might not be a second man. You crazy fool!
This is a great moment, Washington. Everyone is behind you. Do you see that now? Charles, EF, and I are here to help. The assistants and the workers have all the faith in the world in you. Everyone is doing good work. Since we filled the caissons, we've had only a handful of minor injuries. And you hear that crowd out there? All of New York and Brooklyn is cheering you on. And look at those towers, Washington. Even in their unfinished state, you can see the effect they have on the New York skyline. It's just as your father pictured it. That lone steel strand shows the East River can be passed.
And in his usual unorthodox way, EF has proven that to the world.
No man has a bigger heart.
Yes. Still, I can't help but worry about the results of yesterday's meeting.
Must have ended too late to make the paper, that's all. I wouldn't worry.
I suppose.
Mr. and Mrs. Roebling, I present to you New York's own one-man circus act from high atop the East River Bridge, Mr. Edwin F. Farrington.
Thank you.
That was quite the spectacle indeed.
Whatever possessed you to attempt such a thing?
My love for this man.
Oh, so you have become the first man to cross the East River without a boat. You could have been killed up there, you know.
Weren't you frightened?
Was I, E.F. Farrington, frightened? I believe I was also the first man to wet his knickers above the East River.
Remarkable, Mr. Farrington.
Oh, I shall never have that experience again. I owe my life to the strength of Roebling steel.
Oh, I must say, I'm looking forward to the completion of this bridge now more than ever. Do you suppose Roebling steel will be able to support me and this wheelchair?
Washington, I'm afraid that's something we need to talk about. The steel.
The cable for which I crossed the river. Well, that's going to be the only piece of Roebling steel in the bridge.
They have revoked the contract.
Yes.
And I suppose Dickey, Steel and Wire are the happy new recipients of a city agreement?
I'm afraid so.
Oh, how does Dickey and that protege son of his laughing all the way to the bank? That snake!
But that's not all of it.
I'm still chief engineer.
You are, for now, at least.
For now? Charles, what happened at that meeting?
Most of the voters felt, whether or not you are capable of leading, that they should pursue the possibility of replacing you for public relations reasons.
Public relations.
Now, there's still time. Mr. Allen was able to delay the vote for 60 days.
Oh, well, that's great news, isn't it, Emily? I have 60 days to get up out of this chair and be cured. Why? Perhaps I'll fly across the East River by flapping my arms, thus satisfying the commission and properly relating to the public.
I am sorry. I did the best I could.
Everyone's doing their best. I haven't been at my best in months. If I had half the strength of my father, I'd get up out of this chair and march down to the commission and tell them Washington!
Are you all right?
I've never been better.
Washington.
Go. Please, just leave me alone.
I am sorry.
Washington, whatever happens, I'm so proud of you. Look through that window. Look. That partially finished bridge is the longest and tallest in the world. You did that. You had help, but your father dreamed it and you built it. A bridge!
A bridge that will never be completed. Not in a way my father wanted. I failed him again.
Washington?
No, Emily, I should never have accepted this post. I cannot live up to the precedents he set. If I could get down those stairs, I'd strap dynamite to those towers and blow the whole damn thing to the devil.
This is still your father's bridge. You have a duty to see it through.
I will not be allowed the opportunity, Emily. That board wants to kick me back to Trenton. I should have left when I had the chance.
You can sulk. But I have plans for a bridge deck to deliver. Some of us aren't giving up. Thank you both for being here.
Of course.
I needed someone with me today. Dr. Smith is in with Washington right now, and I fear what he may report.
Yes.
Washington seems to have worsened. His spirits are so low. Losing that steel contract was a terrible blow.
Oh, he's going through a very traumatic time,
Not just physically. The emotional pain of losing his father and now trying to fill his shoes is enough to weaken any man.
Dr. Smith knows what he's doing. He'll advise you well.
I've completed my examination, Mrs. Roebling.
I've asked the Martins to stay. What can you tell us?
We are a year since the accident. I'm afraid your husband shows little physical improvement. He also seems to have slipped into a depression. Now, this may be understandable given his health and responsibilities, but it isn't doing him any good. The worst of it is his lungs. They're now at only 30 to 40% capacity.
I see.
Doctor, isn't there anything that can be done to make him more comfortable, to speed his recovery?
The best hope for Mr. Roebling would be to remove him from this situation. He is a young man and may yet show improvement, perhaps even walk again, but someone in his condition needs to concentrate on getting well. It's too much to ask of him to helm a project such as this and make any sort of meaningful recovery. If he were relieved of his post, the bridge may suffer slightly, but his health would greatly benefit.
My husband's spirits are tied directly to the state of that bridge, Doctor. He would never willingly step down.
If he continues to serve, he does so by sacrificing his health.
I understand, Doctor.
You don't mind my saying, Mrs. Roebling, the pride that perpetuates in this family is the bridge's greatest risk factor. Good day.
Perhaps the doctor is right. Maybe Washington should rest just for a little while. You have that beautiful home in Trenton, and you've hardly spent any time there.
Yes, I would be happy to...
To step in as chief engineer, Charles?
But I would never...
Well, maybe if Washington knew it would benefit his health, he'd be willing
How
to...
would the constant thought of failure for the rest of his life affect his health?
He may think himself a failure, but he'll think it while bouncing his grandson on his knee.
What? Enough! Washington mustn't hear this talk.
Emily.
No. Washington is not stepping down. I will not allow it. The Roebling name is going to be forever attached to that bridge. If I must, I will see to it myself. Washington, are you coming out? Do you need help?
I'm fine.
I'm begging your pardon. There's been another accident at the site. I ran into Dr. Smith outside, but I wanted to tell you immediately.
What happened?
One of the platforms from the Brooklyn Tower came down. 2 of the lads fell. They seemed all right. A few broken bones, maybe. The support wire just snapped.
Another wire? That's the second this month.
More injuries. This is senseless.
We need to do something.
Washington?
I don't know. The injuries keep mounting. No one even values my opinion anymore. Then soon I'll be gone. I'm going back to bed.
Despite what you may think, you are still the chief engineer and your opinion is needed. Now, what are we going to do? Washington, men are being hurt.
Is this the same wire we're putting into the bridge? The wire from Dickie?
It is, yes.
Dickie has your father's specifications. This shouldn't be happening.
My father specified a cable strength 6 times what was actually needed. A single strand should easily be able to support a half-ton. For a strand to snap holding only 2 men on a platform.
Well, that just doesn't seem right.
Do we have anyone on inspections?
I sent 2 men to Dickie's factory after the first incident. They were granted limited access, but found nothing wrong with the cable quality.
Swap those 2 men out with 4 more and increase inspections on all other construction materials. I will not have a Roebling bridge built with inferior grade wire.
What is it we're saying?
I believe what we are saying is that Dickie wire and steel must be watched very closely. You don't think they're trying to get you voted out next week, do you?
I'd be surprised if even Haldus Dickie would risk the lives of innocent men simply to push me out. Besides, he already has the steel contract. That is the real price. Can we get a sample of the wire?
Funny you should ask that. After I returned to the accident site after taking the lads to the hospital, the wire fragments were gone.
The wire can be replaced anywhere along the line. How are we sure Dickie's at fault?
What we really need is
A sample direct from the factory.
Yes, a factory sample that is deemed inferior would be enough to get Dickie ousted.
The commission is meeting in the morning. Perhaps I should bring this up.
Yes, and gauge Haldus Dickie's expression when you do. All right, enough on this for now. Let no one speak of this outside this room.
Well, I won't say a word.
Yeah, all right. You two should return to your duties. Bridges don't build themselves. Oh, and thank you, all of you, for your support. I know it is heartfelt.
Right, Chief.
You are full of surprises, aren't you?
Well, I suppose if I only have a short time left, I owe it to my father to do my best. Someone once told me something to that effect.
You are fortunate to have such wise counsel at your disposal. Washington, I think I should go to that meeting also. I think I can convince the commission.
No, I think it's best to let Cece handle this.
But I think I can best speak
No,
for you.
These are powerful men who have no interest in the opinion of a woman.
I only want what's best for the bridge, what's best for you.
I know, Em. I could not have gotten this far without your help. But trust me, that commission is no place for you. I do not want my wife standing between the snake and the mongoose.
Dr. Smith says you're doing much better.
I feel better. Now get down there and boss some people around.
To continue our business today, although he was not expected to speak until the vote regarding Mr. Roebling next week, Charles Martin has asked to address the group on a new development. Mr. Martin.
I'm afraid this new development is not a happy one.
If it has to do with the men who were hurt, I would think this is not a delightful topic.
In fact, there was an accident yesterday where 2 men were hurt when an elevated platform fell. Although they will survive, these men were seriously hurt in this accident. We believe this incident to be caused by a faulty support cable. This is the same steel wire used in construction of the bridge itself. Same steel wire supplied by Dickey Steel and Wire.
Are you suggesting that Dickey Steel and Wire produces an inferior product or in any way?
This is the second such incident, Mr. Dickey, both involving wire from your factory.
We have allowed your own inspectors on the factory grounds to examine the product.
Our inspectors have not been granted full access.
Full access? You expect me, the owner of a relatively small steel company, to allow full access of my factory to agents who answer to Washington Roebling? The next thing you know, Roebling Steel will be duplicating all my manufacturing processes.
Not likely.
When the safety of the bridge and the men is concerned, Mr. Roebling will accept nothing but the finest safeguards and materials.
Will he be exercising the same caution that Washington Roebling used when he ran into that caisson? Or when John Roebling stepped off that boat? Yes, I think we've had quite enough of the Roebling definition of safety. Every day it seems we read of another article about someone being injured on that bridge.
The case remains. Wire from your factory has been deemed the cause of 2 accidents and both resulted in injury.
Deemed by who?
I was witness to one accident and Mr. Farrington witnessed the other.
More Roebling agents trying to attack me for justly and fairly acquiring the steel contract that they had wrongfully gained. Dickey Steel and Wire has supplied the materials for dozens of construction projects and has never been accused of any wrongdoing.
No, nor are you being accused of such now. Charles, what are you doing? Do you have proof of this?
Not exactly.
Do you know what that man can do to us?
I'm here to represent the chief engineer. What am I to do?
Whatever it is, this is not the way to go about it. Now, I'm going to call a recess. Get yourself together, man.
Come, Mr. Martin. Surely you have some compelling evidence to present?
Because this seems directly tied to the already open business regarding the possibility of recalling Mr. Roebling, I'm announcing a recess of this proceeding. We will table this discussion until next week's scheduled meeting, where we will vote on this topic. Gentlemen, we are adjourned.
Mr. Martin.
Nathaniel.
Meeting someone here?
Yes, someone. For a drink.
As am I. Meeting someone.
I think I've waited long enough.
Of course. My father could be a very brutal man. He excels at making others feel small for as long as I can remember.
It is you. You left the note.
When I was 5, my mother died giving birth to my sister. He never forgave my mother for dying or my sister for living. Me being the only one he had any expectations for, I haven't even been able to please him ever since.
Nathaniel, why are you telling me this?
It's not the fault of your inspectors. We load the high-quality wire onto the carriage for your inspectors to sign off on. When they turn around, we replace it with this. Then your same good wire is transferred to the next carriage for your inspectors to sign off on again. Tried to talk him out of it, but the only thing he keeps saying is that we don't have the same facilities that Roebling Steel has. And the only way to make a decent profit is to make the wire half as durable as John Roebling had originally requested. Should still hold for now.
I don't know what to say.
Just make sure that Washington Roebling makes his father proud.
choosing a dance partner. A beautiful lady should always be accompanied by a trustworthy gentleman. You should see me dancing on that tower. Oh, Mr. Martin.
Mr. Farrington, out blowing off a little steam, eh?
Taking the air, yes. You should come in for a drink.
Oh, no, thank you.
Wise choice. The whiskey here could melt a boot heel.
Yeah, indeed. You'll be fitting up to task tomorrow, I trust.
Are you kidding? Look at that. Steady as a rock. Oh, I can't wait to get up on that bridge tomorrow. Oh, if you'll excuse me, Mr. Martin, I believe I've spotted a new gaggle. Excuse me, ladies, but have I shown you my new card trick?
See you tomorrow, EF.
What God has provided for us. Oh, what is the news? Have they begun land anchorage of the main cable?
They have.
Oh, good. Well, come here and help me with... What is that?
This? This is a gift.
I am not in a mood for games just now, Emily. Now, unless that is a loop of wire from Dickie Steele, and where did you get that?
Charles gave it to me just now.
But where did he?
He wouldn't say. All I know is it comes from a very reliable source. He swears it's a genuine article. And look, the Dickie factory stamp.
It certainly looks like the same wire. Emily, get the wire cutters. We need to test this in the wire tension device. Thank you. Thank you. What's that? Oh my God!
What's happening?
It looks like a cable has come loose at the main tower of the land anchorage.
Come loose, or has it broken? What can you see?
Just people running everywhere.
Is anybody hurt?
I can't tell. This is madness. If another Dickie cable has broken, I swear it. Emily, get down there and find out what has happened. And get Cece and EF up here. We're giving that commission both barrels tomorrow.
Charles!
Charles! What the hell happened out there? Charles!
The main cable, it broke while securing the anchorage.
What? Damn you, Dickie!
The tension at the other end of the cable forced it to whip out into the street. It struck near a crowd of people. One man was killed instantly. The recoil shook the tower. 2 men fell, landing in the river.
I am going to string Aldous Dickie up by his necktie. Emily, get EF up here. I want to know exactly what he saw.
Mr. Farrington was on the tower.
They've begun searching the river, but...
No one could survive a fall like that. Not from atop the tower.
Charles! Oh, God, Charles. Oh, thank God. I saw the wire break and I feared the worst. Thank God everyone is all right. Everyone is all right, aren't they?
Mr. Farrington and another worker fell from the Brooklyn Tower.
Oh, the nice man.
A civilian on the street was killed as well.
This is a terrible tragedy.
How can something like this happen? How can this be God's will?
This is not an act of God. This is an act of greed and negligence of one man's own free will. Let them extricate me tomorrow, if they are going to do so. But by God, they will not vote me out until they have heard the truth. This time, I will be there to present it.
And this time I will be with you.
Gentlemen, I know we are all aware of yesterday's horrific accident at the site of the East River Bridge construction. A civilian and 2 workers, including the project's master mechanic, were killed. It is unfortunate that such an event has befallen us one day prior to today's discussion and vote on the fate of Washington Roebling. if because of this tragedy, some of you feel you have your minds made up on which way to cast your vote, I encourage you to consider all that is presented here today. And I remind you, this is not a trial. Washington Roebling is not on trial for this mishap or any other wrongdoing. This must be clear. Given the gravity of this vote, Mr. Roebling is here today to represent himself. His condition, as I understand it, prevents him from speaking for an extended period, so we will exercise patience here today. Mr. Aiken, please let them in.
Certainly.
Now then, I would like to welcome back to these chambers for the first time in many months our Chief Engineer, Mr. Washington Roebling, accompanied by First Assistant Engineer, Mr. Charles Martin, and by his attendant, Mrs. Washington Roebling. Mr. Roebling, we do intend to give you every opportunity to address this commission in any matter you see fit. However, if you are willing, perhaps you'd care to first address a matter of immediate concern to this commission, the matter of yesterday's unfortunate accident.
In fact, it is that precise event which I find most poignant at this time. There has always been much loss and injury associated with this bridge. My father's death was purely accidental. My own incident, the result of foolish whim, perhaps. But yesterday's tragedy was of the worst variety. One that could have been prevented. Yesterday's incident, gentlemen, came as a personal shock to me. Among the dead was E.F. Farrington, our trusted master mechanic. Mr. Farrington worked with my father on many projects, and I've known him nearly my entire life. He's a good friend and advisor, and the best I've ever seen at his trade. The deaths of these men was caused by a support cable breaking at its attachment to the main tower. This was witnessed by nearly my entire engineering staff, including Mr. Martin. Each of the witnesses say the cable in question, provided by Dickey Steel and Wire, was secured properly, but could not bear the load. As the land anchorage was being tightened, the cable snapped. Clearly, this cable was not made to my father's specifications. Gentlemen, this wire was faulty, and it was knowingly supplied as such by Dickey Steel and Wire Company.
Nonsense! Pure nonsense!
What do you propose the cause to have been, Mr. Dickey?
I had friends on that bridge yesterday too, Mr. Roebling. Friends that would say Mr. Farrington was intoxicated, drinking on the job at the time of the accident. It was not a well-guarded secret that the man enjoyed the bottle, is it? The damn fool, he probably misaligned my attachment, and that was what caused my cable to break. Now, I have to supply the project with another support cable, a very expensive support cable. This accident is costing me also, Mr. Roebling. If you're looking for someone to blame, look no further than Edwin Farrington.
E.F. Edwin, everyone called him E.F. No one called him Edwin. And how dare you compare his life and the lives of others to the cost of a support cable?
Clearly, Mr. Roebling cannot continue. Mr. Martin, what say you about these events?
It is true, I was witness to the cable break.
Oh, then tell us, man, what happened?
I heard the sounds of the first strands breaking.
Cable? You heard the cable breaking, Mr. Martin?
Yes, I did. I heard the cable
Not
break.
Exactly an eyewitness.
I was witness to the cable break.
Ha! Ha! Right. Mr. Chairman, gentlemen, with all the respects due to this board, no one God's to get to the bottom of this calamity more than myself. Charges were made today against the company that bears my name. Unfounded as these charges may be, I demand suitable time as to be able to assemble my witnesses who will attest to the fact that Edward E.F. Farrington was intoxicated when he went up on that tower, and that nothing more than the negligence of a common drunk was the cause of yesterday's accident. I personally oversee and approve all the construction of Dickey products. It may be convenient to blame Dickey Steel and Wire, but the fact is, the safety of the construction crews is charged to one man, Washington Roebling. And I hope that his latest error in judgment will be enough for each of you to cast your vote to remove him from his post.
You want your evidence, Mr. Dickey? There it is. There is the brittle, faulty wire that you have supplied to the bridge.
What is this? No one has given this woman, any woman, permission to speak here.
Articles of the East River Bridge Company state, anyone having business with this public board shall be heard in due process.
You may proceed, Mrs. Roebling.
I have every intention of proceeding. This wire is a single strand taken from the Dickey Steel and Wire factory. This strand would then be combined with 5,000 others like it to form one main support cable identical to the cable that broke yesterday.
This is ridiculous. This woman has no formal engineering training. She's not fit to address this commission.
Is this length of wire from your factory, Mr. Dickey?
Once it leaves my grounds, young woman, all wire looks the same.
Ah, yes, but this sample was thoughtfully cut from the spool's end, where your factory stamps its good name into every wire. Is this the stamp of your factory, Mr. Dickey? Right here.
That is a very small mark. It's rather dark in here.
Yes. That is the stamp of Dickey Steel and Wire.
Nathaniel, forgive my son. He's been under very much strain with worry over this bridge, as we all have. Perhaps a recess.
I don't think so, Haldis.
Do you all know what this is?
Of course. This is a wire tension device used to test the strength of steel wire.
Then you know how to use it.
I should hope so. The wire is clamped on here, and each push of the handle checks the resilience of that wire.
And according to John Roebling's original specifications, how many turns should a strand like this be able to withstand before breaking?
I believe 12.
Would you do us the honor?
Certainly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Why, it is as brittle as chalk.
Mr. Dickey, what is the meaning of this?
That device!
And you oversee all production, Mr. Dickey?
Oh, so that's it, is it? We're lynching Haldis Dickey, are we? Well, even if a lesser quality wire were mistakenly delivered to the bridge, there's no way to prove I had any knowledge of it. And there's not a man here who will say otherwise.
He had knowledge of it and he spoke of it often.
Oh, you lying traitoress!
Am I lying? Or am I a traitor, Father?
I knew it! As worthless as your mother. I don't have to stand here and listen to this. You may have your bridge.
Mr. Aiken, go and alert the police that charges will be brought against Mr. Dickey. Tell them I'll be down in a moment to explain further.
No. I'll go.
Nathaniel.
No. I didn't do it for you.
As unfortunate as these circumstances are, I can only wish they were discovered earlier.
Mr. Allen, are we still hearing discussion on the vote on Mr. Roebling?
There is open discussion on the floor, and we do still have quorum. You have something to add, Mr. Aiken?
Yes, I do. Although Mr. Roebling is less than perfect health, I have found no evidence that he has been neglectful in his duty. On the contrary, I find him most stalwart in the face of adversity. And Mrs. Roebling, to my knowledge, no woman has ever addressed a League of Engineers in this city's history, and no one has made such an immediate
impression upon a group of tired old men such as us. And if she and Mr. Martin are the two that Mr. Roebling has picked to finish this task, I say he should be able to continue. And may God bless you.
Then, if there is no further discussion, I call the members to private chambers to cast their vote. I am certain you can expect to retain your position, Washington. And in light of what Emily and Nathaniel have revealed to us today, I think the steel contract will find its way back to you also. This is your father's proudest day.
Thank you. Thank you both.
That was the most amazing thing I have ever seen.
You impressed everyone in here today, Emily. Most especially me.
You engineers. So easy to fool.
The Roeblings have asked me to welcome you today. Let me begin by thanking Mr. and Mrs. Roebling for this invitation and for their years of service to the bridge. I know you are all looking forward to celebrating, for today we dedicate the beautiful New York-Brooklyn Bridge. In a moment, for the special opening day toll of 1 cent, you will all be invited to join President Arthur in a stroll across the bridge. There were many men responsible for the bridge's completion, but none more than our chief engineer, Washington Roebling. Unfortunately, Mr. Roebling's health prevents him from speaking in public. He has asked his wife, Emily, to deliver this statement on his behalf. Mrs. Roebling?
Thank you, Mr. Allen, and thank you all for being here to celebrate our great joy on this greatest of engineering achievements. I am pleased to read this statement from my husband.
Emily, I have made some last-minute alterations.
15 years ago, my father, John A. Roebling, designed the beautiful structure you see behind me, and he was its original chief engineer. Sadly, he was also the bridge's first victim. He would not be the last. When I took over as chief engineer upon his death, I did so with a heavy heart. I was eager to build a bridge of such grand significance, but I was mourning my father, unfamiliar with local politics, and unsure of my own abilities. I count myself as very fortunate to have had the aid of the finest engineering team in all the world. I'm greatly indebted to them, especially my first assistant, Charles Martin, and our original master builder, E.F. Farrington, another of the bridge's victims. But beyond the strong backs and sharp minds of those on the payroll of the East River Bridge Company, I offer my greatest thanks and most sincere appreciation of my wife, Emily. It was she, above all others, who convinced me I was up to the task that this bridge presented. When the bridge nearly claimed my life, she took over many of my duties, relaying instructions to the engineers and work crews. Emily took control of my senses. She became my spirit when I had lost my own. Emily exhibited the faith and determination I so often lacked. She gave me strength when I had none. As you cross that magnificent structure today, I want you all to know it is she who is most responsible for making my father's dream a reality. And I want her to know I love her very, very much. It is with great pride that I dedicate the Brooklyn Bridge to the memory of the men who gave their lives for it, and to Emily Roebling, who gave my life renewed purpose and devotion.
Wonderful. Now, let us join in the festivities.
Oh, festivities.
What is it, Charles?
I don't seem to have a penny.
Perhaps Washington will reward his loyal staff and provide the 3 cents for us.
All right, all right. 3 cents for my staff. My friends. A genuine bargain
for those who have proven priceless.